First of all, please silence your phones. And there is a whole heap of stuff that Pass has to offer. And the cool thing is, a lot of it is free. Please silence your cell phones if you can. That'll be cool. Thanks. This is me, Hamish Watson. I am a DevOps alchemist. Most ridiculous job title ever. The reason it is because I own my own company, so I get to choose what my title is. The alchemist thing comes from I'm a huge advocate for DevOps, which is why I jumped on the Kubernetes train. And an alchemist, or alchemy, is a process of refinement, purifying and perfecting stuff, while actually still acknowledging the base elements it came from and the processes and procedures. I also have a degree in chemical engineering, so when I came up with my job title, I thought, I'm going to pay homage to the 5 years I wasted at university getting second-class honours. Oh, no, sorry, 4 years. The last year, it's a good year. I like to speak. I am from Christchurch, New Zealand. So what that means is, I don't know if you've noticed, I have an accent. What I generally try and do in the US is sort of put a twang on it so you understand some of what I say. But if I talk too fast and you can't understand, please let me know. Just pull your hand up and say, slow down, Hamish. And go the All Blacks, yeah. I'm still in mourning. And don't even mention the Cricket World Cup. I stayed up all night watching that. Sorry? Yeah. We're going to have a great time, I think. You should never ever edit your slides or anything right before your session, but I had to edit one thing on this slide that didn't exist until this morning. I got the Passion Award this morning in the keynote. Thank you. And as a true blue Kiwi, we don't do self-promotion, so that was as uncomfortable for me as getting the award because, it was pretty humbling. So anyway, like I say, I love DevOps. You will see the hashtag #MakeStuffGo. I just spread it out there because it's a pretty cool philosophy to have. Hey, look, there are elections going on for the Pass board. I am a candidate, but there are 5 other candidates who are top-notch. So I'm not going to ask you to vote for me. It would be great if you did, but I want you to vote. Just vote. I don't like apathy because apathy means that we don't have a mechanism to have our voice, have a choice. So please vote for. It's a great lineup of people. The agenda. I'm going to talk about containers. Quick show of hands. Who here actually is running SQL Server in a container? Okay, a couple of you. That's kind of good because I thought if I'm going to do a session on Kubernetes, I should probably do something on containers. And if all the hands went up, I'm like, we've only got half a session. I'm going to talk about what Kubernetes is and introduce you to Azure Kubernetes Services, or AKS. And I'm going to do a little bit of demo. There is actually a 5th item on here. We're going to laugh. We're going to have fun. At some point, you will laugh at me because you're like, why is he doing that? But anyway. Let's get into it. Containers. So, March 2013, a person, Solomon Hykes, announced what would become the Docker open source project. And containers provide us a nice light way of separating out our workloads and avoiding the sort of overhead of virtual machines. And developers have been leveraging this awesome new technology into their software deployment processes. I sort of got amongst containers in 2015. I was working with a couple of development teams, and we had Team City. That's a build server for automating your builds and stuff. And we had literally tables of really not very good machines that were running our build agents, because you have the build server and it kicks off the jobs. And we would only run on a couple of these servers because they had the tools and stuff, the software that we needed. And we had like 15 servers, but we were predominantly using 3 because we'd built them at different stages and different people had built them, and it was a mess. And so what we did was we containerized our build agent. And we got we replaced these horrible desktops and the occasional proper server with one big server, created a repository and all this kind of stuff. And we punched out the images of what our build agent should look like or be. That was so cool because Team City would kick off an image, bring up the container, do its thing, and when it's done, it would chuck it, get rid of it. And so we scaled out. We had heaps of them. But the cool thing was they were consistent. So what are containers? Well, they're lightweight, as I said in the previous slide, but they have everything we need. And for us back in 2015, it had all the code, the runtime, the system tools, libraries, everything. And it meant that it was portable, right? So if we had another big server, we'd just put the image there. And we knew that it would be a consistent result because it's just doing the same thing. And the cool thing is, these days it's available for both Linux and Windows-based apps. And yeah, it just runs the same. And if there's something wrong with it, we'll just build a new image and push it out. And again, the containers isolate the software from its surroundings. The software doesn't know where it's running. It just makes a call to the kernel via it and whatever. It's awesome. But yeah, probably need to talk about containers versus VMs. And as I mentioned, containers are abstracting at the app layer the packages and code and also the dependencies, right? And so we can have multiple containers running on a VM. And they can share the OS kernel, all those library calls and whatever, with other containers. And I mean, don't get me wrong, VMs still have a place for a while until we go completely properly serverless. But yeah, VMs themselves are a physical abstraction, right? So they're abstracted from the physical hardware, and I can most of the time pick up a VM and put it on a new host with not too much configuration. Whereas with a container, I just put it wherever I want, whatever. So yeah, we've gone from this, a VM is heavyweight in terms, and it's not as portable. I've put non-portable, but it's not as portable. But the cool thing is, we can combine the two together, and having containers and VMs, so we will virtualize our server, the OS, what have you, and put on something like Docker as our container engine, and then put in our apps in the container as we want. And the cool thing is, using VMs and containers together provides a great deal of flexibility in deploying and managing our apps. Over on the left, this was, we had physical servers, we had an operating system, Windows or Linux, and then we had our applications, in our case, SQL Server. But then, as I say, we got this hypervisor of the VMs that came along. It changed the landscape. I remember 2008 building my first server with VMs on it, and it was awesome. It broke because I had to go through the learning curve. But then, yeah, containers came around after 2013 onwards, and it's just given us, more choices, more ways of running stuff. And of course, when I think about containers, I think about a container like a small little puppy. They're beautiful, they're wondrous things. So one container's fine, 10's probably all right. But if I have 500 puppies in a room, do you know what happens? It's a big old mess. And this happened with containers, right? So we scaled out, and then it got a little bit unwieldy. And so we had to have something like orchestration. So Mesos, Kubernetes, and Docker Swarm. And People talk about the orchestration wars, kind of like the Netscape Navigator versus Internet Explorer wars of the late 90s. But yeah, Kubernetes has kind of won out. It's quite simple to use, and it's kind of the de facto choice. The cool thing is, I can run Kubernetes on my Mac or my Windows machine or whatever to play around, Minikube, what have you. The thing is that in this example, we still need bare metal servers, we still need SAN storage for disk and whatever, and of course we need networking. So we still need infrastructure people to help us out there. So SQL Server 2017 and above runs on Linux, which is awesome. It's a game changer. And what it means is we can now run SQL Server in a container, which means that I can run it on Windows natively or in a container. I can run it on Linux, both natively and in a container. But I can even run it on my Mac. So one of the demos I'm actually going to do on my Mac, because just why not? And all of this is thanks to Docker. But as I said before, we definitely need an orchestration tool. We need to be able to actually manage this and scale it out. And I mean, in the Linux space, you know, you can run it on Red Hat, SUSE, some of the Debian variants, Ubuntu, what have you. And I feel like the landscape has got way broader and better. And for me, you know, that DevOps bloke from New Zealand, for me it means I can actually script out things rather than waiting for people clicking next and giving me something that's wrong and that I don't want. Whereas if I can script it, I'm going to have an awesome time. The best news is, we're going to look at containers. Alrighty, find my mouse. No, we don't want that. Alrighty, so let me get right up here. Quick question, has anyone used Visual Code? Do you use Visual Code? Yeah, nice, a lot of the room has, that's brilliant, cool. Just check out where I am. Oh, nice, all right. That's cool. So what I'm gonna do here is use Visual Code to run my stuff. I've got a script here. I have to do a massive shout out to Andrew Prusky, Anthony Nocentino, and of course the brilliant Bob Ward, because I've taken parts of their script to do this, because they're awesome. I just know how to click through a script. Anyway, one of the things I want to do first is I'm going to set a password variable. I'm going to go into my directory, which I'm already here. Now, by the way, I'm using bash here. And don't worry about, oh goodness, Hamish. Don't worry about it too much. Like if you're thinking, oh, bash. I could actually use PowerShell in here if I wanted to, but I'm not going to, because I want to be with the cool kids. So yeah, now, this I like. This I really like if it comes up. That is a concern that it's taking. Oh, cool, cool. I'm running PowerShell on a Mac. So ergo, I'm running PowerShell on the grandchild of BSD 4.3, one of the most delicious Unices ever created. I love BSD 4.3. It was fantastic. Anyway, nostalgia over. But one of the cool things is now I can run like PowerShell commands on my Mac. And what this one here is, and again, thanks to Andrew Prusky, DBA from the code, this is a web request that I can go out and look at the tags of containers. Containers have a tag. What that means is I can say, hey, I want 2019 RC1, and so I'll put a tag, and you'll see what this means, don't worry. I'll purposely go slow for you because I have to for me. But I could never remember where I get that from and how do I look it up, and yeah, Andrew did this, which is awesome. You know, there are some wondrous, wondrous people in our community. So, what we can do is pull down a container. And again, it's a pretty, oh my goodness, there is an update. There's not normally an update. Good and bad. One, you see it in action. Two, you're going to hear me talk more. But what we're doing here is we're pulling down the image because Docker, which I'm running on my Mac, it's saying, hey, 2017 latest out on the internet thing, it's later than what I have, so what I need to do is pull this stuff down. It's not pulling it down that quick, is it? Uh-oh. But what happens in a container is we have images. So we will have a base image for what SQL Server, the engine needs in terms of its runtimes, its DLLs, system tools, all that kind of stuff. But if it needs other things, those will be built on top of that image, and so we layer it up. And so in this example, I need three more layers to my image. Now I'm worried because if I do the next one, I think I'm going to do 2019 latest. So what we might do, yeah. Oh, I have a question. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. For sure. So the question was, what about people that are new to this whole Linux thing? You know, for shops that are Windows-based, right? There's no people with neck beards or whatever you call it. Do you call neck beards over here? We do in New Zealand. It's not a derogatory term. I'm trying to grow one. But anyway, it's only 3 days growth, so bear with me. So what happens for those shops that need, you know, are they going to have to learn Linux? There are two answers. I do implore you to look at looking at Linux, because more and more things from Microsoft, I don't know if you've noticed, are going to be more Linux-based. That's cool. You can run containers on Windows, on Docker on Windows. So you're safe for now. Because one of the great things that Microsoft did, they have become a far more open source type company. But a lot of us use Windows, so yes, you can run containers for SQL Server on Windows. And I'll tell you a story. I had a development team of 20, well, it wasn't one team, it was 6 teams of developers, and we had 7 different collations because they'd all installed it at some time and done it wrong. They used Windows, and so what we did was we put the Docker Community Edition engine on the laptops. I uninstalled all the SQL servers on their laptops and ran it up in a container image. And I created the image, I created a Docker file, and gave them a consistent image. Now I had 24 SQL servers, they're all the same. It was awesome. So you can do it on Windows. I would say, I have my last caveat, that yeah, you should probably look at Linux. I mean, I did a session yesterday, it was an introductory one, very introductory, that sort of gives people a little bit of comfort to just try it, yeah. Alrighty, it's extracting on my poor little machine. So now, when I used to work in industry, I worked for software for 17 odd years. Obviously I joined when I was 8. What we would do is each night, we would do this. So we had our own repository, and we would go out and we would pull from, you know, the Docker Hub or wherever and pull the images down. Sorry, what was? Yeah, I know. Thank you so much. I really love it. I really love it when the audience helps me. I'm going to throw this, okay? So, okay, no worries. Yeah, I probably get sued here, right? That's awesome. The images come down. But yeah, what we would do is we had a nightly task that we'd go out and pull the images down, because, you know, me standing around in a corporate situation just talking about stuff, management didn't like that. Don't know why. Alrighty, what we'll do is we're now going to run a container. So let's step through this. So again, I'm going to use the application Docker. I'm going to run it. And I'm just going to put latest here because I've already pulled it down, so that's all right. Oh, I didn't want that to happen. So yeah, we have, can everyone read that? If you can't, please holler and let me know. So we've got some variables we're using. So one environment variable is I'm going to accept the licensing. I'm a poor man, so I can't pay lawyers to take on Microsoft. I'm going to give my container a name because when a container is spun up, it's given like a big long hexadecimal thing. And after 75 minutes with me, you're going to work out I can't type very well. I can almost type the word SQL1. So we give it a nice name, but in fact, we give it a descriptive name because other people need to know how to spin this up and know what it's about. And the last bit is I'm telling it what port to use. You'll notice I'm using 1433. But in fact, if I needed to spin up another container, which we will, I might put 1435 or I think, you can make up any port. What it does is it maps it. So the container, SQL Server, says to itself, I'm listening on 1433 within the container. But outside the container, it might be 1435. Why? Because I might want to spin up multiple containers. Now, I can't have them all listing on 1433. So I designate different ones and whatever. It's all good. It works. And of course, here I am saying which image I want to actually run. So let's do it, eh? Boom, done. Thank you so much. You've been a great audience. Oh, we have a question. Yeah. Well, yeah. What I would do is I'd probably create my own image and do it there and everything. Alrighty. So we actually, and what I'll do is bring that back up to the top. So it was pretty easy to do, right? What I'm going to do is show you something. This looks fairly familiar, right? So I can actually look at my error log in the container. And trust me, there's one point in this demo, if I get too excited, we look in here and I sweat a bit and I'm like, oh, I should have gone a bit, whatever. But anyway, so that's kind of cool. Now, one of the awesome, you'll see C drive bin there for something that's running on Linux. Okay, no. Yeah, always cracks me up there. Right, now, Docker PS. So PS in the Linux world tells me what processes are running. And in this case, I have a Docker image with 3.1.A.9.2.4, whatever. It's called SQL1. Bit easier, right? It tells me what image I've pulled down to do it. And it's been up for a minute or so. But what I'm going to do is do this, SQL1. Boom. What is that? Is that an earthquake? Whew. You know I'm from Christchurch, right? Flippin' heck. Uh-oh. Okay, yeah, all right, we'll go with that. I may need something stronger than coffee if we're doing that. Before, when I ran Docker PS, I could see my container. I stopped my container. Where's it gone? Because I've stopped it. But there's a really cool other thing. Actually, I'm going off script there, but what's the worst that could happen? What I can do is I do A, which actually tells me the images that I have on my machine. So that's all good. What I should probably do is stay on script and start my Docker container. Boom, done. It's going. Alrighty. So we're going to run through this fairly quickly. We're actually going to jump into our container. I'm actually in the container right now. I'm going to set that variable, and now I'm going to do something. Now, let's see if we can move this up. Does anyone here use SQL Command? SQL CMD? Yeah, right? Well, I can use that in here. I can't type, but that's okay. And apologies, it's way down there. But yeah, so the really cool thing, I'm running SQL Server in an Ubuntu container on a Mac, which is kind of cool. But what it means, like in this very trivial exercise I'm doing here, is that I can use SQL command and connect to my container and do all things. I can do it outside the container as well. Oh yeah, cool. Let's get out there and let's do it again. All right, I've jumped out of my container. So I am root, which is a super user type person when I am in the container there, but don't get too hung up on that. Now, let's do it outside the container. Boom. See what I did there? I'll talk you through it. I used Docker exec here. So I told Docker, I want to execute into my container SQL1. I'm going to run this command, this utility here, and feed it the things that we know, we're used to with SQL CMD, and I'm going to run a query. This is kind of cool, because now I can, from outside the container, do some stuff. It's awesome. Now, I can run a second container, and why don't we do that? And the reason why I'm going through containers is because to do a session on Kubernetes and just go, here's Kubernetes, you're all going to be like, whoa, this is pretty quick. We had a question down here.
Where does the output go if you run it from outside the container?
Oh, I can pipe the output out if I chose to, yeah. Let me just spin this. Oh, CU15, yeah, that'd be all right. Boom. I'll come to your question in a sec, sir. Oh, yeah, Hamish. Slow down, son, slow down. Let's get this back up the top. Docker PS. I now have two running. One's listening on 1433 and one's listening on 1435. That's okay. Who had a question?
I was just going to ask if you wanted it to be the latest, like you changed it.
Oh, yeah, no, I didn't. There's a reason. Because now I can test my database code and apps on CU15 and whatever the latest is now. Just see how cool containers are? Because in the past, I would have had to have got IT to spin me up a server or find a SQL Server instance that I would apply CU17 on, and that's that doesn't happen in the 3 seconds that did. I don't care how good your infrastructure team is. I used to run one. They couldn't do it as much as I tried. I tried everything, bribery, corruption. That's kind of cool. So yeah, we've listed our running containers. I'm not going to go through that. Let's do something sort of IT-like or DBA-like. Within my container, SQL1, I am going to create a directory, MS SQL Backup. Oh, yep, yeah, that's cool. Let's do it properly. So I'm going to create a backup directory. Now, on my machine, hopefully, I have a www.i.back file. That's a backup file that was created on a Windows system for the worldwide importers. I'm going to copy it into my container. So let's do that. Right, this takes a wee while because it is only a MacBook Air. I'm not successful enough to have the MacBook Pro yet. But yeah, that didn't take too long. Now, look what I'm doing here. I'm going to use SQL CMD, and I'm going to do some proper DBA stuff. And I'm going to do a restore file list. Oh, goodness, Hamish. I'm going to do this stuff here, which should be, you should be used to this, right? You're not paid by your backups, you're paid by your restore people. I'll come to you in a sec, my friend, because I've got to do stuff. The boss is watching me. It's like, I wanted this restore, come on. Because the thing is, this restore takes a wee while, because again, right. So that's chugging away, and I'll tell you why it's not giving us any feedback. Excuse me, sir, where are you? I lost you, I get blind. Yeah, hi. Yeah. Oh, yeah, so I could have actually said the Ubuntu one. It will know which one to pull down. Because the particular repo will have, I could go back to it. I might answer that after. Yeah, it's all good. Oh, look at this. Congratulations, us. We just restored a database and upgraded it. That's the reason why there was no output for a bit, because it was doing what it does with anything. This backup file was 2016 version, and so it upgraded it to 2017 CU17. That's pretty nice. Right, let's do some stuff. Why am I doing this? I don't know that I want to do that. I actually, you know what? No, let's do something else. Let's do, and I can never remember the blooming password. Do I have the easily available? No, that would have been handy, eh? That's all right. There we go. Yep, this is strong. No one would ever know that, to think to ever copy it. I'm going to introduce you. Has anyone here, do you use Azure Data Studio? Okay, a couple of hands. It's good, right? It's good for two reasons. One, more hands are going up than have before. And also, Azure Data Studio has been having a whole heap of improvements done to it, whatever. Righty. So, come on. Now this might connect. Where is it? Yeah, cool. Databases. So I'm actually using Azure Data Studio to access SQL Server in my container, and now I can run my query, and that's not a great query. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know what? I've been doing this demo lots and lots, and every single time, not just once or occasionally, every single time I do that. Whew. Yeah, cheers. We know each other, so that's all right. Reason why I'm using Azure Data Studio is Microsoft, again, have jumped on the open source bandwagon, thankfully, and I'm running Azure Data Studio on my Mac. I can't run Management Studio on my Mac just yet. So I could, if I was using Windows, I could be using Management Studio here. That's awesome. Seriously, it's a cool world we live in at the moment, so I'm not going to do anything like that. The cool thing is, we have a whole heap of commands that we can do. We can stop our containers, and again, we still have our images, but yeah, nothing is running. Cool. We can restart our SQL 1 container, which is pretty cool. And in fact, we can say, stop all containers, just go and get rid of them. Now, I appreciate that I'm taking you through quite a bit of stuff here, but the cool thing is, this is documented out there, and you only have to learn about 5,000 commands. It's really, really easy. Right, I'm going to do something silly. I'm going to remove my container. And now what I'm going to do, yeah, this would have caught me out, eh? Let's go latest. Yeah, never change your demo during the demo. But anyway, cool. Let's run up our Docker container. Boom, done. Now, what I want to do is come back here. In fact, let's disconnect. Cool. Because I just realized I've got to run another query. Uh-oh. My database is gone, which means I now have to find a new job, but that's for me to worry about, not you. Where's my database? Well, I restored the database into the container, and then I deleted the container. So ergo, my database is gone. And so now people are like, well, wait a second, Hamish. what do I do here? How do we get around that? What we do is we use persistent storage so that our container is connected to the persistent storage so that we can run some stuff. So again, I'm going to stop my containers, or container, singular. Oh man. The reason why I keep skipping around is the podium thingy keeps knocking my hand. That's all right. Cool. Right. What we're going to do is we have this. We have SQL data. Oh, I'm going to create a volume, a persistent volume, and attach my container to it. So let's do that. Wink. I just realized, did you see what I did? Yeah, we're going 2019. What's the worst that can happen? What we can do, I can list my volumes, and you'll see there that I have SQL Data 1 volume. What I'll do is not do that. I'll put this back up so you can see it. So yeah, I've got SQL Data 1. I've attached it into my container. Now what I want to do, yeah, I've jumped down far too far. Where is it? Oh, I see what I've done. Yeah, sorry. Alrighty, we're here. Now, I'm going to do what I did before. I'll just make sure I didn't do anything silly, like get out of there. Cool. I'm going to copy my backup file. I'm not worrying about creating a directory because this is a fairly onerous demo. I do want to state that one of the authors, remember what I said at the beginning? I thanked 3 people. Anyone remember who they were? Andrew Prusky, Bob Ward, and Anthony Nocentino. G'day, mate. It's always awesome when you do a presentation and one of your very good mates and heroes in the room. Yes, my friend.
So, as far as persistent storage is concerned, if you're just basically attaching a directory to it for it to pull from,
Yeah.
is that also how if you had your database code, like in source control, for example, and you just pull that into branch from Git, would you do the same thing, just point to that branch that you're working on?
Yeah, could do. Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah. I was watching down here to see if it actually restores. Yes. Yeah, the answer is yeah. Yeah. It's all good. Alrighty, so again, we're doing this restore, but we're actually going full noise. We're going to 2019, so that's exciting. Cool, that's done. We could jump in the database. We already know that. I'm not going to access anything. What I'm going to do is what I did before. Well, actually, no, we could do this. Hoink. Hardest thing about being a speaker, not material. You can Google the material. Hardest thing is the infrastructure. This bit of wood here, I didn't bank on that being here, but that's all right. So yeah, what I can now do, woohoo, I got my database, that's cool. Now I'm going to be Hamish the silly man, stop my container, remove my container, it's gone. And, oh yeah, cool. This is why I had 2019 here, because I wanted to show people. So if I'd been on 2017 container and I just ripped it out, and then I run this now, 2019, what would happen? Anyone? Because it's a different version, right? What it would do is it would upgrade the database, and I can run it on 2019. That's kind of cool. I've kind of ruined the surprise, because I think you know that I probably will have a little bit of database. So
That's modifying the actual file, right? Not just in the container. So then it's 2019 for everybody when it's been modified?
yeah. Woo, it's recovering, because my machine is not that great. This is good though, by the way. Yes, I am applying changes to that file outside my container. So yeah, but I'm pretty much in control most of the time. So that's not too bad. Let's go refresh. Yay! That's kind of cool, people. Yeah, okay. Like, It means that I can spin up any variant of, version of SQL Server and point it to that and do a whole range of integration tests, whatever. Now, if I've done something to the database, as you saw, it's a backup file, so I'll just delete it and then spin up a new container and do whatever. It just broadens what we want to do. Quick question, because I've got to move on. Oh my goodness, this is going to be hard. Can you yell? They are located on my machine on persistent storage. I drop my Mac a lot, so it's fairly, They reside outside of Docker, and I have attached that storage location to my image. And I removed the image. The database stays there because it's persisted on disk. I bring up a new image, put it together. Okay. Yeah. Alrighty. What we'll do now, we will jump. Let's create a cluster. So one of the reasons why we're now going to do one more demo is because this particular demo takes a wee while to kick it off. So it takes about 10 minutes to spin up my Kubernetes cluster. And that's not the one I want. I want this one. Okay. So earlier today, and don't worry, you don't have to worry about too much of the text there because I'm going to put it in here. Earlier today, I wanted to find out which version of Kubernetes, because you can have versions of Kubernetes services, Azure Kubernetes Services. So I needed to find out which one I was going to run because the one I've been running was quite old. So what I'm doing here, does anyone use the Azure portal? I hope all the hands go up, right? Keep your hands up if you can. Who uses Azure Cloud Shell? Oh, well, that's kind of good. I'm going to show you some stuff. So Azure Cloud Shell, for me, allows me to have all the utilities I need in the portal because I don't know about you, I tried to, I installed Azure RM and then I did Azure CLI and it was a big old mess on my machine. Whereas here, I'm going to use Azure CLI in the Cloud Shell in the portal. And in fact, I build most of my VMs and everything from here. Alrighty, so I've found out what versions I wanted. And what I'm going to do is create a resource group. Now, you'll notice I'm not going to use the portal because there's no need. And we'll do this here. What I'm doing is, so that it goes relatively fast, I'm going to create a West US. I'm giving it a name for the resource group. That was pretty quick. It's not that quick in New Zealand, I assure you. Which is actually why I did it. Now, the funny story is that this particular VM actually lives in Southeast Asia, and I'm accessing West US. That's because I kind of hate myself. No, I usually do it so that I can show the regional stuff. Right, so what I'm going to do here is AZ, using Azure CLI, I'm going to use the AKS commandlets. I'm going to create a resource in my resource group, AKS resource group, the name of Past Summit Cluster. I'm going to do node count. Sorry, it's gone across the line there. I'm going to create 4 nodes, so a master node and 3 worker nodes. Don't worry, we talk about architecture once I've done this. And I've given it a version. And the reason being, the reasons why it's 1.14.8, because I ran that previous script that showed me all the versions, and I picked the latest one. We'll find out whether or not that was a brave move. I definitely wasn't going to choose a preview one. Ask poor Andrew Prusky how much he loves AKS and the upgrades they do. He's a champion, absolute champion. The cool thing about him is he finds out all the stuff for us and then talks to Microsoft and they fix it. Alrighty. What's this Kubernetes thing, Hamish? Well, Kubernetes, or K with an 8 and an S, the 8 is for the 8 letters between K and S. It was founded by engineers in Google in 2014. Google partnered with the Linux Foundation, got all nice about it and offered it to the community And Kubernetes means governor or captain in Greek, and it has this symbol thingy-majiggy, and the symbol is the wheel of a ship. The Google team had a project called the Borg project, out of Star Trek. And so the reason why there's 7 spoke thingies is because they called the project was 7 of 9, the nice Borg. Yeah, it's kind of nice. Cool, done. So there's a few layers. We have our infrastructure layer as before. We still need, databases stored somewhere. We definitely need virtual machines because we're actually going to host the cluster on something. So I said, a 4-node cluster. Well, that's got to reside on stuff. Cool. We need network and load balancers. And then the next layer is our container layer, right? So we're going to use Docker and we're going to use Kubernetes as the orchestration manager utility around that. And Kubernetes can be thought of as a container-centric platform, computing platform. It has a whole heap of flexibility because we can scale out our disk and our virtual machines and everything. And then, of course, we've got our application layer, where our pods. So we run a container, and you see there's a whale. So if you have more than one whale, what do you have? You have a pod of whales, which is why they're called pods. Man, our industry's awesome. Yeah, imagine if this was a carrot farmer conference. They wouldn't have so many inside jokes, right? Kubernetes 101. So over here, we have Kubernetes control, that big old colored box there. I think it's blue. And that enables us to communicate with an API server on the master node so that the master node does all our delegation, works all the things out, does all the things it needs to do. And it actively enforces desired state. Desired state, what that means is if I'm supposed to have 2 things running, it makes sure there are 2 things running. And the worker nodes, so the worker nodes are typically a VM. They could be a physical server as well. I have worked with people who have built Kubernetes clusters on physical machines. They don't get out much. Let's break it on down. So what we have, and this is basically another version of the same diagram. That's cool. Why is that? Yeah, there we go. So you'll see CTRL plane, control plane. So again, this is our master node. This is just another way of looking at it because we interact with kubectl or kubectl. There's a whole couple of ways you can call it. I think of it as kubectl, but that's fine. And basically, we've got a distributed storage that sits outside this that we're going to actually connect all of our containers or pods to. Just like the frivolous demo I did before of connecting persistent storage to one container, well, we're going to connect storage to our Kubernetes cluster. What else? No, that's pretty cool. We'll break it on down. So our master node, basically, it's our control plane, and it maintains a record of all the objects within Kubernetes, all the different application services, pods, you name it. It's continuously managing the state of them. It'll respond to if things go wrong, i.e. a pod died, it'll spin it up, what have you. But it's also our gateway, and we talk to an API server. You'll see it there, the kube-API server on the right. That's where we come in via kubectl. So that's our interface in there. And our cluster nodes or worker nodes, basically the containers are within the pods. And the cluster nodes or worker nodes are machines that run the containers and are managed by our master nodes. And again, what we have here is the kubelet down the bottom. Well, this is the primary controller within Kubernetes. So there's a whole heap of communication going on in this cluster. And for the most part, I hope that you're dealing with Kubernetes engineers, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. I can spin up Kubernetes cluster, work with it, but yeah, there is a learning curve associated with running this stuff. Right, so let's quickly talk about pods. So within our worker node, we have a pod which contains our containers, which talk across an internal IP address within the cluster, but may be exposed outside. And in the demo of AKS, we'll expose it outside. The pods are, I can never say the word, ephemeral. I'm a Kiwi, right? So we can't say words very well. I had to do idempotent on Monday, and they put it in there just to see if I could say it. Basically, our pods have a limited lifespan, which freaks me out when I first thought about this, right? What? Things will die? What? That's the whole point of Kubernetes. It maintains a state so that we can do stuff. So yeah, it's not too bad. As I mentioned before, we have storage. So we connect the storage to our cluster, and we do this via a persistent volume, and I'll show you that in the demo. You probably need to learn a little bit of YAML. It's okay. It's YAML stands for YAML is a markup language. I like to think of it as yet another markup language, but yeah. And it looks like this. It's not too onerous. We have an object spec which describes our desired state for the objects or characteristics that we want the object to have. So we're interested, come back. Oh, okay. So in this one, I have one replica for my MS SQL deployment. And so I'm going to spin up MS SQL. I'm going to do 2019, the latest. That's about sort of halfway down. I give it a container port, 1433. So YAML is fairly unforgiving. You know, the old argument, tabs versus spaces. Yeah, you're going to get amongst it here. This here I actually demoed, but as I say, SQL Server and containers we can run anywhere, and this is the key to it, right? I can switch my database, which is persisted, to another container and upgrade it, which is awesome. And where Kubernetes comes in is it now allows us for build-in high availability and DR orchestration with no clustering required. And I have borrowed this image from Bob Ward. He wrote a book, Pro SQL Server on Linux, and it had some awesome stuff in there. So I have borrowed this diagram and animation from Bob. So thanks, Bob Wood. So my user connects to a load balancer service, which connects to a pod which has my SQL Server container in it, and if that pod dies, Kubernetes spins up another pod or container. Now this node, again, is a VM or a physical server. Now if that dies, Kubernetes just spins up another pod on another node. And so the user will notice this because there is an outage. This isn't unicorn magic, fairy dust, right? There will be a slight outage, what have you. But it does mean that we have a layer of HA and DR in there. You should protect your master node, and in fact, you can have multiple master nodes. And so we may, this is running Kubernetes in Google Cloud, Cloud Platform, GCP. Because I thought, it's kind of nice to know what else is out there. You can run Kubernetes in AWS as well. The demo I'm doing today is in Azure. And we can do HA of Azure Kubernetes services. So we might use Azure Traffic Manager. So it will actually direct customers to the nearest Kubernetes cluster and application instance. Basically, for best performance and also redundancy, we'll direct all our app traffic through the traffic manager before it goes to the AKS cluster. So we can actually cluster out the cluster. The other way we can do stuff is enabling geo-replication for our container images. So basically, we geo-replicate the Azure Container Registry, or ACR, out to all our AKS regions and clusters, which is pretty cool. Which leads me into this whole Kubernetes and Azure thing. So, this is kind of a marketing slide. the cool thing about Kubernetes in Azure is I could actually create, I could spin up VMs, right? Azure VMs, and actually install Kubernetes on it myself. Or I can use AKS, which allows for automated patching, upgrades. It's highly reliable and available most of the time. It enables me to easily scale, now that it can do really awesomely. And there's a whole heap of monitoring, right? Azure Monitor, one of the best things about Azure. So I can do that. But for me, having managed Kubernetes means less stress. And as you can see, if I want to do it myself, there is a whole heap of stuff I've got to do. Or I can just let Microsoft worry about it. And I do what I'm best at, which is, I can focus on my containers and the code, not the plumbing between them. And again, this is where it's easier for the masses, and these slides are going up on the past website, so you'll be able to download them or whatever. So to create a cluster in the old way, I've got to do heaps. Or I could do AZ AKS create, as you saw before. Upgrading cluster, whoo, it's going to be a journey. Or I could just do AZ AKS upgrade. So I may want to run production on premises and do all my own stuff, or run it on Azure VMs, whatever. But AKS enables me to actually give stuff a go, spin it up in 10 minutes. Like, we're going to go back to the demo, Dora, I'll come to you, sir, and have a look. And it's a really cool way to just spin it up, test it out. Does it work? Cool. Then replicate it on site. Quick question, because I'm pushed for time. I do not know yet. I am a Microsoft MVP. I probably should know. I haven't been reading the DL for a couple of days. Anyway. I'd have to Google it. You Google it for me. Use cases for Kubernetes in Azure. There's awesome, obviously the lift and shift of containers, the ability to do microservices, and this whole machine learning stuff. It gives me a way to spin stuff up really quickly. And in fact, why don't we do it? So, let's go back to my VM. Not that, definitely not that. Woohoo! So, the good news is we're going to have a good old demo for about 20 minutes, which will just be a little over time, but that's okay. If I refresh this, there's a new resource group. And in that resource group, I have some items. I knew this might be a mistake. So I have my cluster here, which is my AKS cluster. But let's actually do some stuff. Actually, I'll click in there. Normally I regret this. This might be that day. But I can monitor the containers. It tells me what version, tells me where it is, all that kind of stuff. Node pools, I hopefully got one, good. And in there we have 4 nodes. They're DS2 V2 machine. And in fact, if I come back here, and in fact I wanted to go here, but that's all right. Virtual machines. Now I have a whole heap of virtual machines, but somewhere, wait a sec. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know what I've done. That's all right. Let's go to, come on. Resource groups, because we actually created 2 resource groups before. Well, I didn't. Microsoft did. We have this resource group here, and it's appropriately named. And in here, we have a virtual machine scale set. So that's one of the really cool things about Microsoft. They are continuously upgrading and improving things, because now I have a whole heap of VMs and stuff that will scale, and that I can use VMSS, virtual machine scale set, to scale out. So we have our 4 nodes here. These are 4 machines, VMs, and one of them is the master node and 3 are the worker nodes, because I built a 4-node cluster, 1 master node, 3 worker nodes. Let's make stuff go. Okay, I'm going to connect to my cluster. And again, I thought it would be good to actually just sort of type this out slowly for you so that you could see it running and everything. Yeah, it's all good. All right. So I'm going to connect, get the credentials from my cluster, which saves it into my config file in a directory cube. And now let's install SQL Server. But first of all, let's have a look at some stuff. Oh, man. Again, these are one-liners in my script. And in fact, a lot of this stuff I would, script out. I wouldn't be running through this. So yeah, this is just another way of looking at my cluster. So we'll port that out. And now we're going to use kubectl. So what we're doing is we're actually interfacing, talking to our master node and talking to the API via kubectl. And what it's doing is it's going to store it in my config file and do some stuff and work, hopefully. Yep, cool. Now you notice I have quite a few clusters because I do this demo once or twice. But that's all good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an entry. I'm going to create an entry, a secret for my SA password, so that when I are doing scripts and stuff, I don't have my SA password in there. Now, I do have one thing I need to share with you. So I'm creating this secret, which means I'm going to use a variable SA_password. You can actually find this password if you open up an editor in here. So it's not that secret. You do have to do some other things. But in terms of creating it now, it serves its purpose. So I don't think I need to do that. What I'm going to do, and I will open this in a sec, I'm going to use a YAML file. I'll just get into... So one of the great things about Azure Cloud Shell is you have a cloud drive, and in that cloud drive you have a whole heap of files and this, that, and the other. It's a really cool place to store stuff if you need to. You probably want to use a bit of source control as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply this file. And what this file is, it's a persistent volume file. And what that means, in fact, I will show you. The cool thing is you get an editor in Cloud Shell, and this is the PVC, persistent volume claim. I actually claim some persistent volume. And what it's doing is it creates a persistent volume, and I'm going to do 8 gig, because I'm not a rich person. But what it does is if I look in the Azure portal, and if I get time I will, it's created a volume, a disk volume in there, right? You always use storage volumes, you understand. If you don't, talk to me later. It's real simple. But yeah, I've effectively just created some blob storage up in Azure, and now I'm going to say that we're going to verify that it's all good. I gave it a name of MS SQL data because meaningful names are meaningful. And this is it here. And so it's got a name, a big long name, PVC-42953, well, yeah, whatever. That's fine. I can reference it as MS SQL data, which we will in the next part of the script. So let's rummage. Oh, look at the YAML file, Hamish. Honestly, this is what I write to myself in my demo files. I showed you a YAML file. I'll come to you soon. I've just got to kick stuff off. Otherwise, everyone's going to, give me bad marks. Right, we're going to do the SQL deployment. So please save your question for, I should be 2 minutes away, because we'll kick off SQL. I'll type, and then we'll be all good. Right, okay. Now, again, I am applying this YAML file which describes the SQL deployment.yaml. I'm creating a service. The service is an abstracted representation of my worker nodes, right? So it brings it all up together, and it's awesome. What we'll do is we'll kick off SQL. Oh yeah, let's have a look at our pods. Right. Excuse me. So we have here a pod. It's being created because I used my YAML file that said, right, I want MS SQL to be deployed, MS SQL deployment with that long name, to be deployed in the cluster on the node. So I'm creating a pod, which in this case will hold one SQL Server container. So do you see now why I went over that whole container stuff? It's kind of important to understand the architecture of containers and how SQL relates to it, and it's awesome. So I can do this, get services, and what you'll see here is I have a name, MS SQL-deployment. It's a type of load balancer, which again, remember the diagram? I connect to the load balancer, and then it will redirect me to the pods and worker nodes as required. We have some cluster IPs. So again, this is internal communication between the nodes, but I have an external IP, which I'm going to copy because we're going to connect to it, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to come to Management Studio. Whoa. I'm going to paste that in there. And this is the bit that I always get wrong. The action, oh, look at that. Okay. Yeah. In fact, what I'll do is we will do SQL CMD first, because yeah, sorry. Stick to the script, Watson. Okay. We'll grab this, and I'll chuck it in here. And what I'm going to do, and don't worry, you'll see this in a sec. Whoa, come on. There we go. Control V. So for this particular thing, I do need to know obviously the SA password. What? Oh yeah, okay, no, that's cool. Ooh. The port? Okay, what we'll do, this will probably fail as well, right? That would be bad. Let me run. Yeah, no, it should be allowed. Yeah, it's allowed because in my YAML file, and in fact, if we, I can actually show you the particular file. We might as well look at this while I think very quickly why things are not working. So I actually say, the container port is 1433, that kind of stuff, and down, wee bit down here, for my load balancer, I'm saying, 1433, da-dee-da-dee-da. Eek. Just want to make sure. Yeah. Okay. What's that, mate? Yeah, okay. Good man. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Goodness. It's probably still correct. Okay. Eek. Uh-oh. That's going to be quite the error. Okay, what I'll do, I'm going to do something. Yeah, okay, let's smash it. Oh, Hamish, goodness. Yeah, all right. Yeah, cool. It always helps to actually label stuff that you want to delete. That's so cool. Right, let's delete it. Eek. Okay. Ooh. Yeah, Anthony? Pod what, sorry? Yeah. Cool. Well, the good news is we'll have, oh, no. Sorry. A wee bit of time for questions. So I've never actually had this happen, and now I'm somewhat regretting grabbing that latest one, but we'll see how this goes. Yeah. Really? I've used 2019 latest, and yeah, okay, that's cool. Nah, that's okay. I'm so sorry. I feel really bad. I'm gonna, because we literally only have about 4 minutes anyway, so. Right, I did show you that SQL Server on containers is the future, and in fact, it's the present. Now, for those of you who didn't hear, my good mate, Bob Ward's pre-con, he actually had the same failure. So if Bob Ward has failures, I'm amongst friends, right? So yeah, no, look, I mean, I think it might, yeah, there is an issue with 2019 latest, and if you look at it, there is a whole heap going on in the 2019 space, so yeah, I should have done 2017, anyway, whatever. Honestly, SQL Server running on top of Kubernetes is a great way to scale out and protect your SQL Server instances. And in fact, when I had an issue, I deleted the pod. Now, in the demo, when it works, I delete the pod and Kubernetes spins it up, and I'm actually running unit tests against the database, and the unit tests stop for a bit, and then they reconnect, and it's awesome. Because there was a failure, but because thankfully my app is well written, it handled the failure and just kept going. Doesn't help if you don't have a pod at all, but that's okay. Yeah, Azure Kubernetes Services is definitely compelling, but more importantly, yeah, it's a very good example of not using the latest version. But more importantly, the next step is big data clusters, and guess what? It's built on Kubernetes. So if you are going down this track, and I highly recommend a book by my good friend Ben Weissman on SQL Server Big Clusters Revealed. It's in preview on Amazon. Please have a look at it, because, like I say, Kubernetes, and definitely containers, right? So if you want to embrace containers, you don't need Kubernetes, but once you start scaling and you want to do HA and what have you, you definitely need to look at it. So by all means, please look at containerization, because it allows you to punch out a standard container image, even one that breaks. Please fill in the session evaluations. They're really important. You can win something, which is really nice. Thank you so much. My name has been Hamish Watson. I could say vote Hamish in the board elections, but as a Kiwi, I just want you to vote. So please vote. Thank you so much. I'm going to be hanging around, so yeah.